Let's look at factors considered when determining payments for workers in an organization. Honorable, you are the boss somewhere. Tell us, what do you always consider? Demand and supply. What do you mean? You are putting a lot of economics. Forces of demand and supply. It's a very beautiful point.
For example, I'll talk from the perspective I understand better.
Sorry?
I will talk from where I understand.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand business. For example, for the case of Uganda now, teachers are no longer coming out because all colleges are closed.
Yes.
So there is high demand for teachers.
Primary teachers.
Yes. And then, as you consider a qualified teacher, you need to consider the amount you give that person because he's highly demanded and needed. That means you got to pay him higher. Now, if you get a chance of getting senior certificates like us here this year, we say you come and you get 200,000. So you are not needed.
So, Honorable is considering the forces of demand and supply. It means that when someone is highly needed and the supply is not there and his services are needed, you must hire that person. For example, now, of recent, they closed all the colleges. Now, for you to become a primary teacher, you must be having a degree. And someone earned to be with a degree and you give him 200. So whoever goes to senior 6 and above and beyond may not come as a primary teacher. So that's why only nowadays you're going to use senior 6 leavers.
Even visible.
I think you're going to use the senior 4 leavers. Forces of demand and supply. They look at demand and supply. Yes, you need something, but is it there in supply?
So if it is not there, you have no choice.
You have no choice. So Honorable consider. Do you have any other thing you consider?
Yes, they very much consider your qualification.
Sorry?
The skills attached to a given worker.
The skills attached to a given worker. Yeah. You don't need to employ each and every person. You consider the skill. What does he have? Only that in Uganda today, they consider who knows you. Is your brother. You carry all the drafts, whether they know or they don't know.
Of course,
they do on the job training.
Outside they say, what do you know? Here they say, who knows you?
Sorry?
The kind of work to be accomplished.
The kind of work to be accomplished. So you look at that also. Is the work technical or not? Is it big? You consider that. Then you see whether that person you are going to bring in, whether he's going to do the work. You consider, someone is saying that you consider the motivation.
Who is considering
the motivation of the employees?
Who is considering
This consideration.
He's telling me that.
Factors to consider when determining payment for workers.
He's telling me that the motivation. Do you have to first motivate the boss so that you can be employed?
No.
That is corruption.
That is corruption.
It's better we first go through this so that you can easily explain them. Okay, let's write them. 1. Level of competition for workers. Level of competition. Level of competition for workers. Level of competition for workers among different employers. Level of competition for workers among different employers. Level of competition for workers among different employers. Also can continue. High levels of competition for workers. High levels of competition for workers. High levels of competition for workers. Force employers force employers to pay their workers higher wages. Force employers to pay their workers higher wages so as to motivate and retain them. So as to motivate and retain them. So as to motivate and retain them. On the other hand, absence of competition. On the other hand, absence of competition for workers. Absence of competition for workers among different employers. Leads to relatively low wages. Leads to relatively low wages paid to employees. Leads to relatively low wages paid to employees. Let's have another factor. Level of education and training. Level of education and training that a person undertakes. Level of education and training that a person undertakes. That a person undertakes. Workers who have high levels of education, workers who have high levels of education, workers who have high levels of education, workers who have high levels of education are paid higher wages, paid higher wages because of extra period of training incurred. Because of extra period of training incurred. Because of extra period of training incurred. On the other hand, low wages are paid to those workers. Low wages are paid to those workers with low levels of education. Are paid to those workers with low levels of education. Next, cost of living. Cost of living. Cost of living. Employees who work in areas where the cost of living is high. Employees who work in areas where the cost of living is high. Employees who work in areas where the cost of living is high. For example, in urban areas. For example, in urban areas. For example, in urban areas, are paid higher wages. For example, in urban areas, are paid higher wages than those who work in areas. Than those who work in areas. Than those who work in areas where the cost of living is relatively low. Where the cost of living is relatively low, for instance, in rural areas. For instance, in rural areas. Next, experience and skills for a particular job. 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 write and say, higher wages are paid to employees. Higher wages are paid to employees. Higher wages are paid to employees. Are paid to employees. Are paid employees. With experience and the required skills. With experience, the required skills,